मन एव मनुष्याणां कारणं बन्धमोक्षयोः बन्धाय विषयासक्तं मुक्तं निर्विषयं स्मृतम् यतो निर्विषयस्यास्य मनसो मुक्तिरिष्यते अतो निर्विषयं नित्यं मनः कार्यं मुमुक्षुणा निरस्तविषयासङ्गं सन्निरुद्धं मनोहृदि यदा यात्यात्मनो भावं तदा तत्परमं पदं तावदेव निरोधव्यं यावद् हृदि गतं क्षयम् एतज्ज्ञानं च ध्यानं च शेषो न्यायश्च विस्तरः नैव चिन्त्यं न चाचिन्त्यं न चिन्त्यं चिन्त्यमेव तत् पक्षपातविनिर्मुक्तं ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते तदा स्वरेण सन्धयेत् योगम् अस्वरं भावयेत् परम् अस्वरेणानुभावेन भावो वा भावयिष्यते तदेव निष्कलं ब्रह्म निर्विकल्पं निरञ्जनं तद्ब्रह्माहमिति ज्ञात्वा ब्रह्म सम्पद्यते ध्रुवम् निर्विकल्पमनन्तं च हेतुदृष्टान्तवर्जितम् अप्रमेयमनादिं च यज्ञात्वा मुच्यते बुधः न निरोधो न चोत्पत्तिः न बद्धो न च साधकः न मुमुक्षुर्न वै मुक्तः इत्येषा परमार्थता एक एवात्मा मन्तव्यो जाग्रत् स्वप्न सुषुप्तिषु स्थानत्रयव्यतीतस्य पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते एक एव हि भूतात्मा भूते भूते व्यवस्थितः एकधा बहुधा चैव दृश्यते जलचन्द्रवत् घटसंवृतमाकाशं नीयमाने घटे यथा घटो नीयेतनाकाशः तथा जीवो नभोपमः घटवत् विविधाकारं भिद्यमानं पुनः पुनः तद्भग्नं न च जानाति स जानाति च नित्यशः शब्दमायावृतो नैव तमसा याति पुष्करे भिन्ने तमसि चैकत्वम् एक एवानुपश्यति शब्दाक्षरं परं ब्रह्म तस्मिन् क्षीणे यदक्षरं तद्विद्वानक्षरं ध्यायेत् यदिच्छेत् शान्तिमात्मनः द्वे विद्ये वेदितव्ये तु शब्दब्रह्म परं च यत् शब्दब्रह्मणि निष्णान्तः परं ब्रह्माधिगच्छति ग्रन्थमभ्यस्य मेधावी ज्ञानविज्ञानतत्परः पलालमिव धान्यार्थी त्यजेत् ग्रन्थमशेषतः गवामनेकवर्णानां क्षीरस्याप्येकवर्णता क्षीरवत् पश्यते ज्ञानम् लिङ्गिनस्तु गवां यथा घृतमिव पयसि निगूढम् भूते भूते वसति विज्ञानम् सततमन्थयितव्यम् मनसा मन्थानुभूतेन ज्ञाननेत्रं समादाय उद्धरेत् वह्निवत् परम् निष्कलं निश्चलं शान्तं तद्ब्रह्माहमिति स्मृतम् सर्वभूताधिवासं यत् भूतेषु च वसत्यपि सर्वानुग्राहकत्वेन तदस्म्यहं वासुदेवः तदस्म्यहं वासुदेव इति
नमस्ते शारदे देवी काश्मीरापुरवासिनी त्वामहं प्रार्थये नित्यं विद्यादानं च देहि मे या श्रद्धा धारणा मेधा वाग्देवी विधिवल्लभा भक्तजवाग्रसदना शमादि गुणदायिनी नमामि यामिनीं नाथ लेखालङ्कृतकुण्डलां भवानीं भवसन्ताप निर्वापणसुधानदीं भद्रकाल्यै नमो नित्यं सरस्वत्यै नमो नमः वेदाङ्गवेदान्त विद्यास्थानेभ्य एव च ब्रह्मस्वरूपा परमा ज्योतिरूपा सनातनी सर्वविद्यादिदेवीया तस्यै वाण्यै नमो नमः यया विना जगत्सर्वं शाश्वजीवन्मृतं भवेत् ज्ञानाधि
Mantra 2. How can the mind be both the source of bondage and the means to liberation? In one mode, the mind that gets attached to sense objects is the cause of bondage. The same mind in another mode, devoid of attachments, is free. In formulaic terms, sorrow is directly proportional to attachment. Conversely, the greater the detachment, the higher the joy. Insistence plus resistance is equal to sorrow, bondage. Conversely, acceptance plus independence is equal to happiness. Why does the mind become dependent on objects? When I am ignorant of my true nature, I identify with the finite body, mind, intellect. Their incompleteness becomes mine. I extend the distinctiveness of the BMI assembly to the world, which becomes something separate from me. I am attracted to some Vishaya and repelled by others. Sankalpa and desires follow. Every Sankalpa is the admission that right now I am not happy. I need something other than myself to make me happy. Vishayas are linked to one another. One will bring another. I become hostage to an array of objects. Gurudev used to say, don't put the keys of your happiness in someone else's pocket. The Ashtavakra Gita advises, If you aspire for liberation, my child, reject the objects like poison. There can be no happiness where there is bondage. It is the detached mind that truly enjoys the world. It accepts each moment as it is, as it comes, without expectations about what it should be, without attachment to what it brings. Mantra 3. As long as we live in this world, one cannot escape from sense objects. A mumukshu is one who diligently, continuously practices diverting his or her mind from attachments, making it free of all dependencies. This is the main purpose of all sadhanas. Can one live without sankalpa and desires? There are basic desires, food, shelter, and clothing, that are devoid of sankalpa, and these do no harm. One must be careful not to impose expectations on these and create attachments and bondage. One can perform one's bounden duty without personal expectations. Drop whatever is not one's duty. One can cultivate love for others and subordinate one's own welfare for the welfare of others. The purpose of all these is to dissolve one's raga dvesha. One can raise oneself to turn away from the gross joys of the body to the subtle joys of the mind. There are many sadhanas that can be performed to quieten and raise the mind. Silent meditation, japa, pranayama, vrata, yatra, upavasa, maunam, bhajan, puja, yajna, and so on. Remember some things about sadhana. Always keep the goal of the sadhana in mind. Yatras must not become sightseeing tours, for example. Sadhanas are the means, not the goal. Do not let your mind get attached to them. The mind can make even sadhanas into bondage.
Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram. My respectful pranams to Swamiji and namaskar to all sadhakas who have joined us today for the discourse. Earlier you heard the Amrit Bindu Upanishad chanting by Srimati Rupa ji and the Sharda Stotram chanting by our Balvihar Govind Unni. Before we begin, I'd just like to mention all our yajmans for this discourse. Our Sampurna yajmans for this discourse are Shri Chittur Manohar ji, Srimati Jolly Silvipat, Srimati Neerja Birla, Srimati Radha Kini. Our Sampurna Upayajmans for this discourse are Srimati Chitra Vora, Srimati Kalpana Morparia, Sri Kishore Mallapur, Srimati Kumud Gyanendra Mishra, Srimati Preeti Saxena. Our Dainik Yajmans for this discourse are Srimati Parul Bhamar, Srimati Prabha Patodia, Srimati Pratibha Shah. Our Aarti Yajman for this discourse is Srimati Jolly Silvipat. I pray that Lord Jagdishwara's Gurudev, Guruji, and the entire Guru Parampara blessings are on them. I request Swamiji to continue with the discourse.
Hari Om.
Swamiji, we can hear you now.
Audible now?
Yes, Swamiji. Yes.
Okay. So, 3 verses we saw in Amrit Bindu Upanishad. The first verse said that mind is of 2 types, impure and pure. The impure mind is that which is filled with karma and sankalpa. The pure mind is free from it. So the exercise for the first verse is to find out what are my fanciful imaginations, and subsequently what is the karma, desire for fulfilling it. Second verse said that this mind is the cause of our bondage and liberation. That mind which is attached is the cause of bondage, that which is detached is the cause of liberation. So exercise for this is to introspect and find out, first and foremost, whom do I hold responsible for any sense of limitation, inhibition that I feel, or bondage that I feel, and stop blaming them. We may blame people, we may blame situations, we may blame government, we may blame anyone, including planets, but nobody is responsible for what we feel inside. We take charge of what we feel, then only we can change what we feel. If we blame others, we cannot change what we feel. So the exercise to do is when it says mana eva manushyana, mind alone is the cause of our bondage. There are external factors, there is no doubt, but the state of my mind is in my hands, how I choose to respond. So I should identify whom do I hold responsible for my bondage or my feeling of anything, sadness, hurt, or negativity. First question to think about. Second question is, when it says bandhaya vishaya saktam, what are those objects or people or situations on which I depend for happiness psychologically? That without this, I cannot be happy. So I need to identify those attachments that I have. Then the third verse says that one has to free the mind from these attachments, and especially objects. For a seeker who wants to know the self, the mind has to become free from objects, all dependencies on the objects and psychological imaginations, hankering, brooding, all that. So the third verse says, yato nirvishayasyasya manaso muktirishyate. So the mind which is free from the desire for sense objects, that becomes free. Again, please remember, this is for mumukshu. A seeker of liberation, intensely wanting liberation, that person has to free the mind from all sense objects. So we saw in the waking state, when we do work with selflessness, we don't act out of our raga and dvesha, then that will free the mind, and all the sadhanas that we do where we learn to do vrata, upvas, yatra, all these externally also are to help the mind to overcome its raga and dvesha and become free from attachments to objects. Then when the sadhana is done to withdraw, upasana time, japa, meditation, that time definitely the mind must be freed, meaning the mind should not hanker after these. Otherwise the mind is expert. Gurudev used to say, we don't have to teach meditation to anybody. All of us are expert meditators. Only difference is the yogi meditates on the self, the bhogi meditates on objects, but both are meditating. That is not what we want as mumukshu. So, ato nirvishayam mana nityam karyam. One has to free this mind from sense objects. Now, we saw this in detail, so I will move on. When we free the mind from sense objects, then what to do? There is a lot of energy. Now, what will that mind do? Now see. See, one point to understand here is what is mukti, what is moksha. Moksha is not a quality of the mind. Please remember that. Freedom from the mind itself is called moksha. That is called mukti. To think that I am this mind is bondage. This mind is an equipment, thoughts come in it, feelings come in it, and they go. Like the eyes are the equipment with which I see the world. Same way, mind is the equipment with which I feel, intellect is the equipment with which I think. These thoughts, they come, they go, feelings, they arise, they stay, they move on. I am not these actually. That's why in the Gita, it comes, Natvaham teshu te mai. They are not in me, I am not in them. They are in me, I am not in them. They come, they rise, they stay, and they dissolve in me. I'm not affected by them. But today we are fully identified with it. So thought of anger comes, we say, I am angry. Thought of happiness comes, I am happy. That is a psychological dependency. The freedom from this notion that I am this mind, that is called mukti. Mukti is not that mind is retained and it will gain something. It will lose itself. The psychological distinction that we have, that I am Mr. So and so we feel I am only this much and world is separate from me, God is separate from me. That psychological distinction, to be free from that, is called mukti. And a person who wants to be free from that is called mumukshu. So just like we get, suppose a person doesn't have wealth, one gets wealth, one works hard, attains money. Now that person has become wealthy. Same way, one doesn't have love, let us say, one has nice friendships, relationships, and one feels loved in life, one feels very happy. One doesn't have fame, glory, then one achieves that. If one wants to become more, let us say, generous, or one wants to become more positive, one wants to become more quiet, one wants to become more dynamic, these are all qualities of the mind. Mukti is not a quality of the mind. Mukti is freedom from the mind. So that's why mukti cannot be gained by the mind. So this one has to be clear. The state of permanent happiness that we seek is that state which is our true self, which we have forgotten. And then we got identified. Last class we did this. That our main purpose is to know who am I, truly. Because ignorance is our root cause. We don't know who we are. And falsely identified with this body, with this mind, now we think I am this individuality. So that notion has to go. That's a wrong notion. And that notion will go when the right knowledge arises. For right knowledge to arise, the mind must be in a state of contemplation or enquiry. To do steady contemplation and enquiry, the mind must be freed from sense objects. So this is the progression. Our karma yoga, our upasana will lead us to purification of the mind, unification of the mind, making it single-pointed, sharp, subtle, free from the sense dependencies, object dependencies, attachments to people, etc. Then with such a mind, what has to be done? See verse number 4 and 5. Nirasta vishaya sangam sanniruddham mano hridi yadayatyatmano bhavam tada tatparamam padam tavadeva nirodhavyam yavat hridigatam kshayam etadjnanam cha dhyanam cha shesho nyayascha vistaraha. Nirasta Vishaya Sangam. So when the attachment to the sense objects has been renounced, then what has to be done? Sanniruddham mano hridi. Then restrain the mind into the heart. Sanniruddham mano hridi. First we will see the literal meaning. Then what will happen? Yada yati atmano bhavam. Then one experiences the Atma Bhav, that I am this self, I am not this mind. Tada tat paramam padam. When one is established in that Atma Bhav, that is the supreme state, that is a state of freedom. Tavadeva nirodhavyam. Now, till when should I do this? It was said, Sanniruddham mano hridi. Let the mind abide in the heart. Heart here means the self, not the physical heart. So, till when should I do this practice of, making the mind abide in the heart? So he says here, Tavadeva nirodhavyam yavat hridi gatam kshayam. Till the mind does not lose its separateness. Till that time, we have to keep doing this, where the mind just dissolves. Etad jnanam cha dhyanam cha. This is knowledge, and this itself is meditation. Shesho nyayascha vistaraha. The rest is all elaboration and logic and all that, which is only a supportive means. It cannot by itself lead us to the Supreme. Now, this is the literal meaning of the shloka. So first, what does he say? Nirasta Vishaya Sangam. Having dropped the attachment to objects. Now that mind cannot be in vacuum. See, we have withdrawn from the objects, people, situations. If we don't engage it in subtler or in the higher, in the self, it will again go back, because mind cannot live in vacuum. It will again wander back into the world, which is what happens when a person just thinks that, focusing on the breathing, I will quieten the mind, or one uses some other methods where one learns to withdraw the mind from the object, so one feels relatively quiet for some time. And only for that much time, till when one is doing that. Again, when one goes out, the mind won't remain in that state for a very long time. Even if it remains in that state for a long time, its feeling of finitude doesn't go. So again, it will go back into attachments. Again, it will feel the jiva bhav. So quietude of the mind is not the goal. Peace of mind is not the goal. It is a means. No, Swamiji, peace of mind is our goal. Then no need to proceed further after this. Keep doing what first 3 verses said, that is enough. But remember that peace of mind will come and go. It won't remain always. If I want permanent peace, that is the nature of the self. So we are seeking peace of the self. Upanishadic seeker seeks peace of the self. Now, how to experience the peace of the self? When we transcend identification with the mind, then only it is possible. To transcend identification with the mind, we have to steadily contemplate. So when it is said, Sanniruddham mano hridi, let the mind abide in the heart. What is the heart? So this heart is not the biological heart, the physical heart. It is the core of our being, where we feel the presence of our personality. If somebody doesn't know a particular, let us say you ask a question and they don't know something, what they will say, what they will do, they'll start scratching their head. Because, psychologically one feels the brain is here and, I'm thinking, oh, I just remembered, what was it, I forgot. Or even to indicate, do you have any sense? We touch here. But when we have to say I, where do we touch? We say I. Is the audio very low, or only 1 or 2 people are feeling that?
Swamiji, it is fine to me.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, when we have to introduce ourselves, or we have to say I, or I am feeling happy, nobody says I am feeling happy, or I am so and so. One touches the heart. See, beyond this, I can't increase the volume. It is at full capacity. You have to try something else. Either you increase your volume in your phone or try some Bluetooth speaker, because this is the maximum volume here. I don't know. There's nothing else that I can do here. This, all settings are at full. So you please try at your end. Yeah, so coming back to this, the feeling of aham, where it rises, that is the core of our being. And that pure aham remains the same in all the three states. That doesn't change. In waking state, many things change. Every minute, this small I, Mr. So-and-so, its description keeps changing. That's why people keep asking now and then, how are you feeling now? In the same day, the person will meet again and again, you know. Two people meet each other, maybe let us say 4 times in the day. Every time they ask, how are you? Why? Because mind changes. Morning I may be feeling very good, afternoon I may feel little low, evening I am very happy, night I am in ecstasy, whatever. That small I goes on changing, but the source of that small I is the real I, is the consciousness. So Hridaya here means consciousness, the true I, aham, aham, aham. Brahman Maharshi used to say, Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahma matram aham ahamiti sakshad atma rupena bhati. So this, in the cave of the heart, is this aham, 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 Hridaya kuhara madhye. So there it means that the self is that aham, pure I, and that is the Hridaya also. Some seekers gave this etymology also of Hridaya, Hri, Harati, Da, Dadati, Ya, Yamayati. Harati means to take, Dadati means to give, and Yamayati means to control. Even physically, the heart is that which pumps out blood, takes in blood, all that the heart does physically. But here in spiritual, when we say it is not the physical heart, it is spiritual, then it is that pure consciousness only which gives, which enlivens, dadati, because of which the mind has ability to feel and think, the body can perceive. It is only that which as though harati. So the thoughts, they arise in the mind, they stay in the mind, they go back, they arise in the self-consciousness, they stay in the consciousness, they disperse, they dissolve in the consciousness. But that pure aham remains untouched by any of this. So the contemplation has to be that I am that pure consciousness which is unchanging, unborn, imperishable. I am not this body, mind, intellect. That steady contemplation one has to do. Because the challenge is, the ignorance is the cause and the right knowledge is the solution. Self-knowledge, Atma Jnana is the solution. And Atma Jnana means, Atma means I. The real meaning of Atma is I. Who am I? Truly. So 2 ways to do this. When it is said Sanniruddham Manohridi, one method is the method which the Upanishads also point out, Brihadaranyaka and other Upanishads. They say neti neti, not this, not this. Meaning negate whoever I am not, whatever I am not. So I am not this body, I am not this mind, I am not this intellect, I am not the jiva, I am not the ego, I am not the sense objects, I am not the 5 elements, I am not the 5 pranas. Nirvana Shatkam, 3 lines are negation. Keep negating. Why? Because we have identified with the not self as the self and we think that I am this. That's why many Mahatmas, they don't use the word I. They talk in third person. Papa Ramdas is one Mahatma like that. He used to speak, Ram will come, Ram will eat, Ram is here, Ram is watching, Ram is listening. He doesn't use I. So the Ram is like a third person. The Ram is doing all this. I am the witness of all this. That's the real Aham. So if it helps somebody, then do it, but ensure that people are aware. Why are you doing it? Otherwise, people will think something is wrong with this person. So one is the negation sadhana. This negation sadhana happens in both ways. Huh? See, everything happens in both ways. Internally, while in the state of deep contemplation, and externally also. It cannot be separated. One cannot say that in contemplation I am not this, I am not this, I am not this, but after contemplation I am this only. Then it will not lead to any progress. Because half an hour of contemplation and then 20 hours of complete identification, what progress will we make ever? So while living outside also, if this sadhana is done where we don't use the word I, or we keep reminding ourselves, this is only a role I am playing, I am not this. This is only a tool that I have, I am not this. So the neti sadhana is also it is at all times. That's why Gurudev used to say ours is not a Sunday to Sunday religion. It is a 24/7 religion. Full time one has to be alert and aware that who am I truly? And that is the greatest sadhana. So one is neti, to keep negating. Even Ramana Maharshi said, ask. Ramana Maharshi also used to say this, one sadhana is to negate. Second sadhana which he became a champion of, is the Who Am I Enquiry, which one can ask anytime to oneself. Suppose there is lots of anger. Then one asks oneself, who is angry? No, I am angry. How did this person talk to me like this? Who is this I? Oh no, I am such a reputed person. I have done so much for this organization. I have done so much work, and how dare this person talk to me like this? So that small I is what I am describing. This person who has worked for such a long time in this organization, such a senior person, how do people talk to this person like this? So all that build-up is there. So one goes on asking who is angry, who is hurt, and one doesn't accept the answers. Why? Because those are all false. They only belong to the role. So I am such a senior person. Who am I? I am so and so. Who am I? Keep on asking who am I? And any answer comes, never accept. Who am I is a question for which any answer is wrong. There is no right answer. No, Swamiji, I am self. That also is only a concept of self. Don't mix up two things there. Just keep asking, who am I? I am not this, I am not this. Whatever answer comes, don't accept. Keep asking, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? What will happen? In the earlier situation, one was brooding, one would have kept on brooding more and more and more. Now when I ask, who am I? Who is angry? Who is hurt? The ego gets exposed. And when we don't accept the answers of this ego, they will fall. All those answers will fall. Functionally, one will still remember who one is, what is one's name, who is the father, son, spouse, all that. But that psychological distinction that one had, that drops. The ego becomes lesser and lesser and finally dissolves, which is what we are trying to achieve. Sanniruddham mano hridi. Mano here is the ego. Ego, jiva bhav, mind, whatever you call it, all the same. So bring it back again and again to that self. So either negate who I am not and assert who I am, or do the self-inquiry. Even in self-inquiry, there's some part of negation which is there because I'm not accepting any answers. If I keep doing this, in the state of sadhana also, when I am withdrawing, if the mind brings up any notions, one doesn't accept. One says, I am not this, who am I? And while one is outside the sadhana, if any experience has happened, it may be pleasurable, it may be painful, it may be fearful. Again, one observes and asks, who is scared? Who is pain? Who is excited? Who is happy? No, I am excited, I am happy, I am scared. And then all the mind will keep bringing up its commentary. One doesn't accept any of it as real. One keeps asking, who am I, who am I, who am I? Or at least observe that what all this mind is doing, so I am the witness, I am not this. Self-observation, self-inquiry, negation. In any combination you can use this. That's the method to restrain the mind into the heart. In Bhakti Marg, one takes the name of Bhagwan and one says, I will not focus on anything else. Bhagwan alone is real. So keep taking name of Bhagwan. Even if the mind wanders anywhere, bring it back to Bhagwan. Full stop. Yoga Marga, it will be lifting the Kundalini and bringing it to the appropriate chakras, etc. So all methods are actually to restrain the mind into the heart. In the Upanishad also, Bhagavan says the same thing, Ramana Maharshi. He says, Hrit sthale manaha swasthata. To bring the mind into the heart, what to do? Bhakti yoga bodhascha nishchitam. Swasthata kriya. Kriya is karma yoga. Bhakti is bhakti yoga. Yoga is the Raj Yoga marg. And bodha is jnana yoga. So all the four yogas will help us to bring the mind back into the heart, to dissolve this sense of separation that we have. That's why I said mind cannot grasp infinity. So infinity does not have to be brought within the realm of the mind. That is impossible. The mind can dissolve in the infinity. That is what has to be achieved. That's why this path is different. That's why Nivritti Marg, the only method is drop. There is no acquisition. So the Upanishad say, Tyage naike amritatva manashuhu. Only by tyaga, only by renunciation, this is possible. No amount of acquisition will help. Because whatever is acquired is finite and is acquired by the entity which is finite, and that finite entity has to be dropped. So that is what he says, Nirasta Vishaya Sangam Sanniruddham Manohridi. Now, if I restrain the mind in the heart, what will happen? Mind will dissolve. Oh, how can I believe that? Suppose it's a state of blank. You know, Gurudev used to give a very nice equation about thought. He used to say, thought is equal to object plus consciousness. Any object, if I become aware of, it is only through thought. So if I am seeing this computer, there is a computer thought in the mind. What is that computer thought? The form of the computer enlivened by consciousness. So that is the computer thought. Without consciousness, I cannot become aware of this. Eyes will not be able to see, mind can't recognize, intellect will not have the knowledge to know this is computer. So thought is equal to object plus consciousness. If the mind is freed from all objects, then what remains? Do the maths. Thought minus object is equal to consciousness. That is what we have to do, no? Nirasta Vishaya Sangam Sanniruddham Manohridi. That mind freed from sense objects, when it contemplates I am that pure consciousness, or it inquires who am I and keeps negating all answers, then that mind is no mind. Mind without any objects and without thought flow is not a mind. Then what is it? Consciousness alone. That's how mind has dissolved into consciousness. Dissolved in the sense it was never separate. The wrong notion of its separateness is gone. Like the wave is water alone. But the notion that I am this wave separate from this ocean and I am searching for something called water, that's a wrong notion. The wave itself, by in its true nature, is water. There's nothing called wave. Same way, this mind, this object, this body, this whole creation is appearance of oneself. But today we don't know that. So we have separated. That sense of separation has to go. So when the objects are removed and when a person is steadily contemplating, it will not lead to a state of shunya or blank, because one feels the presence most powerfully. Why? Because even the blank, who is aware of that blank? That is aham. All the absence also one is aware of. There's a presence to know all the absence. That presence is consciousness. So that is called Atma, Atma Bhav. Yada yati Atmano Bhavam. Yada ayati Atmano Bhavam. That's the Sandhi Uched. So yada ayati, when the person experiences that state of the Supreme Self, tada tat paramam padam, then that is the supreme state, meaning the state of realization, gaining which nothing more remains to be gained. One has experienced that fulfillment. That emptiness which was there throughout, because of identifying with that which is incomplete, that incompleteness, that emptiness disappears. Because one realizes it was never there. I was always pure consciousness alone. Yada yati atmano bhavam. One discovers the Atma Bhav when one drops this false identification. Tada tat paramam padam. So what is the supreme state? This is the state of freedom, mukti. It is not going to some Vaikuntha. It is not, seeing some form. Bhagavad Darshan is a great, it is a grace of Bhagavan and the purity of the devotee's mind that one has Bhagavad Darshan. But that is still not the ultimate. That same Lord will lead the devotee to the state of Brahmagyan, to state of oneness. That is Paramam Padam. And this keeps coming in all the Upanishads. Even in the Gita it comes, Natad bhasayate suryaha, nashashanko na pavakaha, yadgatva na nivartante, tadhama paramam mama. Having established in that state, one never comes back into the false notion of ignorance that I am this jiva. One is freed from it once and for all. Na nivartante. And when that knowledge has destroyed ignorance, the root cause of samsara is destroyed. So there is no birth and death again. One is freed from that also. This is the Paramam Padam. This is Mukti. Now, if somebody says, till when should we do this? Till when should the mind be restrained in the self? It's like asking, till when should I maintain the thought that I want to sleep? See, using that thought, I want to sleep, all other thoughts we give up. However pressing work may be there, I have to meet somebody or some important, some very entertaining movie is going on, whatever it is. When I am tired, I just want to sleep. So with that thought, I want to sleep, I drop all other thoughts. How long should I maintain that thought? Swamiji, no need to ask. If you maintain that thought, sleep will just get invoked and you will be lost in that sleep. That thought will drop completely. Same way, till the sleep doesn't, till you don't get absorbed in sleep, you maintain that thought. No, same way, till the mind doesn't get dissolved fully and realize the self, one doesn't realize the self, till then do this process, nirodhavyam. How will I know, Swamiji? How will I know? How does a person know when one has woken up? One has woken up. One knows I have woken up. Same way, when ignorance is destroyed, one knows, oh, I am that, because it's my true self. Nobody else has to tell. The self is Swayam Jyoti, plus it is my own true nature. Who has to tell me? Nobody else has to tell. I myself will know. So till that process, now why this question is important? Because it is not that this realization happens like an experience suddenly. It happens, one may get into that state, but one will get out of it also, because past vasanas and all are there, those pressures are there. So a long time one has to practice this sadhana of savikalpa samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, and then one gets abidance in the self. Till that time one has to keep doing this sadhana. Contemplation steadily, then the mind is absorbed in the self, and then some vasana pressure, again the mind comes out, again one has to go in. Think about it. If you read Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's life, how many times he used to do, how many hours in a day, go up, go into that state, come down, go into that state, come down. Then for sometimes continuously many days is in that state. Same way our Gurudev also, Tapon Maharaj, his Guru also. 8 hours he used to be in that state of samadhi. So it requires that effort. Why? Realization is very quick, but this destruction of vasanas and so many karmas of the past, all that takes time. Purifying the mind, then steady contemplation, dehatma bhav has to go, all that takes time. And this here we are talking about the time taken for contemplation. Long time it takes even to steadily contemplate, destroy dehatma bhav. And in this process, one has to have clarity. If one thinks that, okay, I'm contemplating on the self, I'm chanting mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham, nacha shrota jivve, nacha ghrana netre. I'm not the mind, I'm not the intellect, I'm not the memory, I'm not the ego, I'm not the 5 elements, I'm not the senses. Then who am I? Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. Then I must have clarity of that who, what is Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, how I am that, how I am not this. And when one is doing this sadhana, there is no special experience that one has to look for. Some blue light, some yellow light, some divine voice, some akashvani, some halo around the neck, some levitation. Nothing will happen. Because that is not what we are seeking. If you want that, then there's other psychic processes one can do. We are destroying the false identification. How will I know the progress? Ego pressure becomes very less. Dehatma bhav becomes very less. Acceptance of life becomes very fast. One is disinterested in all petty things in the world. One wants to come into that state of samadhi again and again. One wants to go into that state. Not as an escapism, because one wants to realize that. That's the intensity which one wants. So those are steps. And one will also start, the mind will become steady in contemplation very quickly. Earlier, if it was taking more time, now it becomes very easy. Effortlessly, it goes into that state of contemplation. So, tavadeva nirodhavyam yavat hridikshatam kshayam. Till the mind doesn't fully absorb and dissolve and destroy. Ramana Maharshi says, Manolaya and Manonasha. We are not trying to do Manolaya. It is not temporary quietude of the mind. It is complete dissolution of the mind. Psychological entity gone, finished. That is what Upanishad is. Upanishad must finish this I, small I. That's the purpose of Upanishad. Purpose of Upanishad is not to beautify this small I. How can I become more loving? How can I become more charming? How can I become more focused? How can I become, more efficient in my work? For that, there are other books. One can read those and follow. How can I improve my relationships? Don't come to Upanishads for that. Upanishad is to destroy this Jiva Bhav. The highest text ever is Upanishad. That is what Upanishad will do. It will destroy the false notion, the root cause of sorrow. It will burn completely, finished. Nothing else will be able to do what Upanishads can do. Everything else will make a finite into better finite. Upanishad will dissolve the finite to make the finite realize you were never there. The infinite alone was always, and you are that infinite. How beautiful is that? So, Tavadeva nirodhavyam yavad hridi gatam kshayam. This mano nasha is what we seek. That is called mukti. Ramana Maharshi says it is like this, but manolaya, peace of mind, temporary peace of mind, what we spoke earlier. It has its own place, but that is not the ultimate. That is not this paramam padam, because that temporary peace of mind is only for a few minutes, few days, few hours. Again it comes, some challenge comes, some attachment comes, some agitation, gone. Mind is disturbed. Now what to do? Again try and put all factors together, then little peace one gets disturbed. So he gives an example. It's like those birds on whom the net is cast. As long as the net is cast, the birds are there. The moment you remove the net, the bird will again fly. Same way, using the breath, using the mantra, using any method, the mind has become quiet for some time. The moment that restraint on the mind is gone, again the thoughts will start flying. Again one will start, imagining, brooding, all that. Obviously, it doesn't mean all those sadhanas are a waste. They are definitely helpful. They make the mind more and more pure, single-pointed. But even that mind, which is pure and single-pointed, is still a mind. With that mind, we contemplate on the self, restrain the mind into the heart, which is the self, destroy the mind. The false notion, gone. That is the supreme state. And he says, etad jnanam cha dhyanam cha. This is called jnanam. See, the highest knowledge is this. This is called paravidya. The intuitive realization of the self. Yayatad aksharam adhigamyate. That is called paravidya, by which the supreme imperishable is realized. It's an intuitive knowledge. It is not verbal knowledge. It is not book knowledge. It is not words. Intuitive knowledge that arises in the mind which has dissolved, completely gone. And that itself is the state called dhyan, which is meditation. So technically speaking, meditation is not a practice to do. Meditation is the state of awareness where effortlessly I am aware of what my true nature is. Swarupasya sahajam bhanam is dhyanam. Effortless awareness of who am I truly. That state is called dhyan. Gurudev used to say meditation is not a verb, it is a noun. So you cannot do meditation, you can only be in meditation. Now what is that being in meditation? Is being the self, not being Mr. So and so. Even when I'm Mr. So and so, there is a self in me, the witness in me, which continuously observes all the time what this Mr. So and so is doing, what is happening in the world. It's a silent observer, the ultimate observer. That is the state of meditation. Now, to reach that state, the word jnana and dhyan people use even in colloquial ways. So they say, I am gaining knowledge, I am studying this, and I am learning this knowledge. So there they are using knowledge as a means. So even Upanishad knowledge. So I am studying the Upanishad. So the Upanishadic knowledge there becomes the means to do this, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan. But so that is aparavidya. But in the higher meaning, the word jnana means atma jnana, state of realization, and that itself is called dhyan. In a lower, one level below, we say that the knowledge of the Upanishads is what we will use. The knowledge of the self is what we will use to do dhyan, to realize the self. So there jnana will lead to dhyan, dhyan will lead to sakshatkar. That's again a usage where we are using the word jnana as a means, where we want to gain knowledge. We are very clear what to contemplate upon, what to do in meditation, how to proceed. And then we actually do the process. Then we say, I am doing dhyan. And then that will lead to Atma Sakshatkar. So we should be clear why this is saying jnanam and dhyanam are same. Because this is referring to the highest state, where knowledge itself is that state of awareness. Self-knowledge is equal to self-awareness, is equal to realization, is equal to consciousness, is equal to meditation. No difference in this at the highest level. At a lower level, we say, okay, knowledge will help us to do steady practice of meditation that will lead us to realization. So be clear on that. So he says, etad jnanam cha dhyanam cha. This is what is the highest state. Shesho nyayascha vistaraha. The rest is all logic. Now, logic, for those who need logic, it is a very important tool to gain conviction that how can I not be this body? How can the world not be real? How can I be the self? All that. So this temperament, when someone has the logic temperament, when someone has, and one needs reasoning. But that reasoning by itself will not lead to realization. That logic is only a means. Does God exist or not? Now, logic can be used to prove God exists, and then logic can be used to say how God is all pervasive. Logic can be used to say how God and you are one. But realization will not happen only by logic. I can use that logic and I can do this sadhana where I can free the mind from sense objects. I can withdraw the mind and abide in the heart, and that will lead to realization. Mere logic by itself will do nothing. And that's why in spiritual life, it is very important that logic, we understand its use. It is necessary, there's no doubt, especially those who have the intellectual temperament. Same way it applies in Bhakti Marg also. One can keep listening to Katha and glory of Bhagwan and the power of the mantra and understand its logical effect on the body, mind, and what vibrations it will create and this and that. But if I don't sit and do it, I will not experience the benefit. So explanations, discourses, logic, all that can be, given. But after a point, one has to go beyond that. Actually start sitting, doing the practices, sadhana, and one will know that how much logic comes to whether one has understood properly or not. Because when one is contemplating with conviction, with clarity, based on the scriptural logic, the contemplation will, the person will take off. It's like a flight, one will just take off. But if clarity is not there, one will just miserably fail, because one will just not know what is this. One will maximum feel the beauty of the music, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham, and one feels so nice and mind has become quiet. That one may feel. But the joy of contemplation and the negation and then abidance in the self, that will not come. That's why the study, reflection, all that is important to gain the conviction. Then one has to sit. Because that practice of contemplation is the highest practice one can ever do. There's nothing greater than that practice. That will lead to samadhi and that will lead to realization. Again, please remember, this is a sequence I am saying. The sequence is not producing realization. The sequence is destroying ignorance. Realization cannot be produced. It's not a byproduct of any process. It is always there. Like the sun is there, clouds are covering, then you can remove the clouds. You don't produce the sun behind the clouds. Sun is already there. So this whole process, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, Savikalpa Samadhi, Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and continuous practice of that will finally lead to abidance, is only step-by-step process to remove the false notions, ignorance. And that is what one has to do. That is the effort. And that's why whichever book appeals, whichever sadhana touches one's heart once, and whichever path one has chosen, one should just start walking. Find out, two things only need to be done. Find out what is the goal clearly. Be convinced that this is the goal I want to achieve. Then find out what are the means, then start walking. That's all. Otherwise, we will keep exploring. This path can also lead me there. That path will also lead me there. That path can also lead me there. This book is saying this. That book is saying this. This book is saying this. Why this is not said in that book? Why this book is contradicting that book? Oh, Bapre. khichdi, lost in all that now. Nothing wrong in reading different books, but the purpose is to gain more clarity about the path, about the goal, and then start walking the path. How many maps can I keep collecting? And then say, oh, this road can also go there. Oh, this also leads me there. Let me try this for a little while, then let me try that for a little while. I don't think these both are working. Let me try some other map, some other route. Where is time? So he says here, Shesho Nyayascha Vistaraha. This, all that rest of it is only logic and explanation, elaboration. One should not get caught in that. One has to start doing this practice. Now, if somebody says, how to contemplate, Swamiji? It was said earlier, bring the mind into the heart through steady contemplation. So that student is asking the teacher, how to contemplate steadily now? See the 6th verse. Naiva chintyam na cha chintyam na chintyam chintyameva tat pakshapata vinirmuktam brahma sampadyate tada. First line of this is very confusing. So it says, Naiva chintyam, that which cannot be thought about. Nacha achintyam, not that it is unthinkable. It is double negative. Na achintyam. So, naiva chintyam, that which cannot be thought about. But, so one says, okay, let me not think. No, it is not thinkable. Okay. So can I think? Na chintyam, don't think about it. Okay, so I won't think about it. Chintyamevata, that alone is to be thought about. Oh God, what is this? You decide, should I think about it or not? Why are you confusing me every time? First you are saying it cannot be thought about. So I'm saying, okay, it cannot be thought about. Then you are saying, no, it is not that it is not unthinkable. Okay, so I will think about it. Then you are saying, no, it is unthinkable. Na chintyam, don't think about it. Chintyameva tat. So if I say, okay, I'm not thinking. No, that alone you should think. You decide now. I am sitting quietly now. You are confused, oh Guru. Why are you contradicting in one line you have contradicted yourself twice, in one half itself, first half of the shloka. Now what does this mean? You know, these things, that's why Upanishad has to be learned from a teacher. If we read by ourselves, what will we understand? And imagine people sitting, they have not even come to Bharat. They have not even understood the tradition of Bharat, to Guru Shishya Parampara, not learned formally. Sitting somewhere out there in Germany, this Max Muller translated all our Vedas. And he was paid 9 times the amount of that time. What a translator used to get at that time to translate the Vedas with such malicious intentions to make the Indians feel low about their community, about their culture. Impossible. That's why sometimes they write, many of these foreign authors, they write, Upanishads are the blabberings of the rishis in their childhood. They don't understand what the rishi is going through, what is the state of the Mahatma, and what is this language of contradictions that is used, why that language of contradictions that is used. And sitting there, they write. I'm not generalizing that all foreign authors one should not read. I'm just saying that the importance of parampara, even in our country, there are enough people who without any parampara, without learning properly in the tradition, understanding the proper meaning, very popular, and they keep writing commentaries also, and people keep publishing it also, and it becomes such a rage, creating confusion. Literally, it is like what the Upanishads say, blind leading the blind. It's literally like that. So very important it is whose book I am reading, which commentary I am reading, what is the background of that person, how well versed is that person in that knowledge, has the person studied that properly, and in spiritual life, is the person even attempting to live that life? It may not be that everybody is realized, but is that person even a seeker? That will make a big difference, because if that has not happened, then simply one is just reading, one may get confused. So now this line, first line we saw the literal meaning. Second line says Pakshapata Vinirmuktam Brahma. What will one realize if one does the contemplation as above? Swamiji, first of all, we don't know whether we should do or not do. That you clarify. So that I will clarify. But if what is mentioned in the first line is done, then what will be the result? The result will be one will experience that Brahman which is free from all partiality. Sampadyate tada. So you reflect on this verse. Why is it said Naiva Chintyam Nacha Chintyam Nachintyam Chintyam Eva Tat? What is this? Definitely it appears contradictory, but there is a deeper, beautiful meaning, and therein lies the secret of contemplation. Because the mind will follow the same process it has been following with everything else. That mind has to be shaken up from that process. It cannot follow that process in contemplation. So this language of contradictions is used to indicate the right technique. And also the mantras like this, they are such that if somebody has not had the proper traditional understanding or the required purity of mind, one will just not get it. So though one may see the book, one may read also, one may even know the Sanskrit meaning of each word, one still may not get it. Like the Gita Bhagavan says, Yaha pashyati sa pashyati. Whoever sees, sees. So eligibility. These verses also test how much have I studied well, understood well, and what is my purity of heart. Then one will grasp. So for today, we will stop here.
Thank you, Swamiji. You have left us all on a very thoughtful note. We will now have the Chinmaya Aarti, and the Aarti Yajman is Srimati Jolly Silvipat. We can have the questions after the Aarti, so you all can be ready with that.
Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj ki jai. Okay, any questions for today? You can raise your hand. All right, no questions. Thank you, everyone. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.